In this lesson, I want to talk about what success looks like going through a boot camp like this, realistically, what you can expect. And then I also want to share some of the common traits or attributes that I see in sellers that are the most successful so that you can replicate them to achieve the same high level of success as what some people do. To get started off, I'm going to bring up the results of a pretty cool survey that Jungle Scout did. They surveyed over 2,500 sellers, and they came up with some really cool statistics. Now, the numbers we're looking at here, this is an aggregate of a lot of sellers. So this would be a combination of those who are not very successful as well as those who are very successful and everything in between. And a few of the numbers that I'll point out here is the number one regret of sellers is that they wish they would have started sooner. This one was really interesting as well. After 18 months, the monthly profit is equal to about 66% of the investment. So when you invest more money up front, your monthly profit grows quicker, but it's okay to still invest a smaller amount up front, but don't expect realistically to make as much money. The statistic here that most of you guys are probably interested in is how much profit they're making. So in the first 18 months, 50% of sellers made between $157 to $2,500 a month. About a quarter of sellers were making over $2,400 a month in profit. And about a quarter were not making very much profit at all, only about $156, okay? So you can see there's a difference here. So I'd say about a quarter of sellers aren't able to make it very successful. 23% of sellers are only able to make a very small amount of money from this. These might be people who only had a few dollars to invest. About half of people were able to make, I'd say, a substantial amount of money. Let's call it $1,000, $2,000 per month in profit. And then about a quarter of people were able to make as much money as what one typically would working like a full-time job, kind of like the average of like a full-time job. Now you can see after 18 months, it starts to grow a lot. Then a quarter of people are making over $12,000 a month. And you can see the mix there. But the reason I wanted to show you this is it's good to be realistic right from the get-go, okay? It's not realistic to expect to make $10,000 or $50,000 a month like the first month you get started. This is a real business. You can expect in the first few months or first half of a year that you're not making very much money at all. And then after that, it can start to grow. And then I would say that the numbers that I just showed you here, these are all the sellers that they were able to find to answer this survey. And I think what you would find is a lot of that group, let's say the quarter that were only making a couple $100 per month, I'd say what you would find in that group is they probably only had, a couple $100 to get started. They probably didn't have more of like a formal education course. They didn't go through a boot camp like this. They had a lot of mental roadblocks. They didn't have a community to support them. I would say those would all likely be common attributes of those people who weren't able to be very successful at it. The ones that were the most successful, these were probably the people that devoted a serious amount of time to it. They probably had more of a, like a boot camp or a better education to get them started. They were probably able to invest a little bit more money to get started. I've worked with some sellers that in less than a year, so let's say like a half a year, they were making very significant money, $10,000 a month, $20,000 a month, like big numbers here that vastly were greater than what they were making like at their jobs before that in a relatively short period of time. But I'd say like from this group, there were some common traits that I think I could pull out through working with all these different people. And I would encourage you to kind of like soak that in and take some of those traits and make them yours, because then the likelihood of you achieving a high level of success in a short period of time like they did, like $10,000 a month, $20,000, a lot of money, your chance of doing that increases, okay? I think it's very important to stay focused on this particular boot camp. And the reason that I say that is because one, I know it's really worked for me, and you're going to find that it is very high quality information. But actually, another important part is that if you learn from a whole bunch of different sources, you'll find there's a lot of different ways to create these businesses. And the challenge of learning from like 10 different courses or education spots, or like whatever else, is that you pull in a whole bunch of different pieces of information, and then sometimes it can even be more confusing. And as a result of that, you are just more confused than help. You don't know whether to do this method or that method, or launch like this or launch like that. And at the end of the day, sometimes it actually doesn't matter which of those methods that you choose. What matters is that you choose one and you stick with it and you see it through, okay? So I think it's very important to stick with this boot camp. You just paid your hard-earned money for it. Stick with this one because it's very important that you stay consistent on it, okay? A second common attribute I saw with this group of people is that they showed a lot of mental grit or mental persistence. And you need to understand right now that you are creating a business and that you will hit roadblocks. You're gonna have challenges. You are going to run into times that you think this is difficult because you're building a business. But if you stay focused, you take it one step at a time, you take baby steps to get there, and that, like one day or one night, if you hit a challenge and you're frustrated with it, you're upset, or you can't figure out how to do everything, like put it down for a night, sleep on it, but get back out there tomorrow and take more baby steps, all right? So like mental persistence and not getting discouraged when you run into challenges. A huge benefit of doing the Freedom Builder Bootcamp is that you're surrounded. You have this community now. You have a coach, and these are people you can ask questions to. You can ask me questions. You can ask these in the live Q&A. And this is where we'll work through all these different like mental roadblocks or mental challenges together, okay? So don't let them get you discouraged. Keep moving through it. Another important attribute is that those who had a lot of success in a short period of time was able to set aside time every single week to work on this business. I remember when I was starting, I'm not a night owl. I'm usually like by 10 p.m., I'm like falling asleep in my chair, okay? But when I was first starting, I was working a full-time job. I had a lot going on. I was involved with, I remember like this beach volleyball league, and I was like working some other little side jobs. I was having to travel for my engineering job quite a bit. So like I had a lot going on, right? What I decided to do is my wife was a manager at Target, and every Tuesday and Thursday she had to close. She didn't get home till like 1 a.m. And like I said, I wasn't a night owl, but I made this commitment that every Tuesday and Thursday, I was gonna drink a big cup of coffee after dinner. I would stay up until midnight or 1 a.m. And there'd be that period of time from like 6 p.m. to like 1 a.m. And it was like 6 or 7 hours of like uninterrupted time for me to do my learning, do my work on the business. And by setting aside this time, I was able to achieve success much quicker than what a lot of other people would if they were just working on this like 30 minutes at a time. So I guarantee all of you guys watching this right now have other commitments, and you probably live a pretty busy life. You have kids, jobs, school, family commitments, whatever else. Everyone has a lot going on. But if you it doesn't have to be 6 hours, 2 nights a week like I did. It could just be 2 hours or 4 hours a week, or just setting aside some uninterrupted time for you to work on this, I think is a very important thing. Another attribute I saw, and I think this goes with like the mental persistence, is what I like to call just-in-time learning. So what I've found is if you jump a whole bunch of steps ahead, and you jump and you're trying to learn about PPC before you've even chosen your product, or you try to learn how to take the best photos before you've even placed your order, that it can feel overwhelming because you're learning a lot. And since you haven't actually practiced any of these items yet, it seems a little bit more challenging than probably what it really is. Now, if you break this down into bite-sized chunks, what you'll find is actually nothing you're gonna learn throughout this entire bootcamp is actually that challenging. Even if you have no technical experience, you've never done this before, you haven't sold on Amazon, actually none of it's that challenging when you follow through with these videos step by step. Even if you have no experience, it's relatively easy to learn. So I'm a huge fan of just learning about doing product research and then choosing a product, then just learning about sourcing and placing your order, then just learn about shipping and creating your listing, and then doing that. Because the benefit of doing that is like you're creating all these small wins along the way. So like you're learning how to do it, you're getting the win because you're following through with it, you feel good, you're motivated, you're excited, you take on the next part instead of learning all of it and then getting overwhelmed with it. So I'd strongly encourage that. And my last 2 tips for you are to use the data specifically from Jungle Scout that we're gonna be talking about throughout this course, because by following the data, you remove a lot of the kind of like the games you play in your own head a little bit. So by using the data, you're following the data, you're using like these cold hard truths, instead of what your kind of passion that day or excitement that day or something leads you to believe. And like as a result, you kind of make some of these poor decisions. So use the data. And the last one is use the community. This is a huge benefit of the Freedom Builder Bootcamp. You have the community there by your side. If you're ever stuck or you don't know what to do, or you're having doubts, or you're excited or anything else, talk to everyone about it in the community, because what you'll find is that everyone else is just like you. They're also a human. They're having the same doubts. They have the same excitements, and it's very beneficial, and it leads to a lot more success by going through and having that community with you, all right? So that is a little bit of what you can expect as far as what success looks like. That is also some of my tips of what I've seen of working with the very successful sellers that can greatly achieve the upper ends of the profit averages that I showed you at the beginning of this. So that's what you can expect there. And I think the other thing is, if you're ever feeling like you're having second doubts, you're like, man, I don't know if this is for me, or I don't know if I can do this, or any second doubts, we're gonna link some success stories below, because it's really awesome to see very normal people that you could probably relate to a lot. And it's like, wow, they are just an average person. They've never done anything like this before. And some of these people have achieved really amazing successes. So it's very inspirational to watch. If you ever need a little extra inspiration, we'll link them below. And yeah, in the next lesson, we'll talk a little bit more about getting started with these businesses. We'll get into some of the actual cold, hard information of like what it takes. I think you have enough inspiration by now, and it's time to start taking action and getting this business started. So I'll see you in there.